Three, two, one.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Metaverse Church podcast. I am Stuart, and in the Metaverse, y'all know me as Pastor Tsunami. Hey, I know that Pastor Goose and I have taken a little bit of time off from dropping any new episodes, but I want to let you know that there was a reason for that, and the reason why, life is just busy. But I also wanted to let you know that we are coming back with some new episodes, and we are just going to go ahead and officially call this Season 2 of the Metaverse Church podcast. So please know that we do have some episodes coming out for you, and we're excited to just bring forth to you just the things that we are seeing, the things that we're learning. On top of that, we're also excited to be talking to other people who are doing ministry in the Metaverse spaces. Now, I do want to address something. I have been hearing a lot from other people around the country. I've had awesome opportunities to go and do some conferences on VR ministry and whatnot this past year. And it seems like the more and more that I had the opportunity to go out to different places, the more I was hearing this idea that VR technology is dead and we are fully moving into just the AI frontier, and how churches may or may not be using AI in the future. And I just want to address something with that, because while many people might be questioning whether or not church and virtual reality might no longer be a thing moving forward, I would strongly oppose that and argue against that idea altogether. As many of you probably know, I'm sure that as techies and VR and metaverse people yourself, you probably have been paying attention to what it is that Apple has been doing, and even Microsoft and whatnot. And in fact, you may have even heard about some of these companies that are scaling back their VR expressions and pulling some money out and kind of abandoning what they're doing in virtual reality altogether. But January 19th, Apple officially put their Apple Vision Pro on pre-sale, and within the first 15 minutes, they sold over $300 million worth of the product, 80,000 units. And I did not order one of these headsets, and trust me, it bums me out. In fact, if you're an Apple fan, much like I am, it probably bums you out too that you probably as well didn't order one, because let's be honest, a $3,500 price tag for a headset is pretty hefty. It's Apple, probably going to be worth it, but pretty hefty. But just the sheer fact that they sold that many units of these Apple Vision Pro headsets alone shows us that the idea of VR metaverse technology is not quite dead yet. In fact, if anything else, there's probably a second wave coming. Now, you might be saying, yeah, but the Apple Vision Pro headset isn't necessarily a VR headset. It's more of a spatial computing. 100% true. Now, but the reality is that we don't quite know yet what the Apple Vision Pro has for us as VR ministry users. So we have to wait and see. For many of us, we're going to be waiting on pins and needles to see what other people have to say about it and whether or not it's worth the money, if it's worth the use. I will say this, however, if you are in ministry or you are a church and you're looking at launching a VR ministry within the next year, 2 years, whatever, and you're questioning whether or not there is a use for a $3,500 price tag headset in your church, let me just stop right now and tell you, yes, I promise you that there's a use. We have seen this over and over and over again throughout history, that a new technology comes out and the church questions whether or not it is of the devil, and if the church should even dabble in such a thing like the WordPress or the printing press or radio or television or internet or what have you. What have we come to learn? Time after time again, the church always ends up adopting and adapting to this new emerging technology. And as well, the enemy. Satan loves to be able to use new products that are innovative in order to advance his kingdom as well. So it becomes the church's responsibility to put our hands on it and figure out how do we make Jesus known through these new innovative and emerging technologies. So is $3,500 a hefty price? Yes. Should the church be investing into it? I absolutely believe so. But many of us are going to be waiting to get that headset. So all that being said, there's all this talk about companies scaling back and whatnot. So should the church be abandoning VR? Because to be honest with you, I have seen tons of different churches within the VR environments that have completely bounced out. Many of you guys who've been listening to this podcast know that the platform Altspace was an area where a platform that we were all using to do ministry on at one point. And pretty much every single church was in Altspace at one point in time or another. And with the shutting down of Altspace, many churches just decided, it's not worth our time to investigate this anymore or investigate what else is out there. For us at Lakeland, we actually did a lot of bouncing around for a while trying to figure out where were we going to call home when that platform shut down. Now, lately, we've been on big screen and we've been absolutely enjoying it. In fact, I'm sure in coming episodes, we will be talking about even some of the cool new features that big screen has brought to their platform that has made it even more worthwhile for the church to be there, or for a church to be there. But that'll be in coming episodes, I'm sure. But I just want to sit here and say this. Now is not the time for the church to be abandoning VR technology. Whether companies decide that they want to scale back or not, the reality still is that people are still buying into it. People are still buying MetaQuest 2s or MetaQuest 3s or some different type of headset, and they're still pressing into VR spaces. And they're still looking for social community. They're looking for social interaction. And so they continue to hop into places like VR Chat and Rec Room and Big Screen and Meta Horizons and Spatial. And they're also still coming in with their hurts, habits, and hangups. And they're still coming in looking for maybe a little bit of hope. So you're still talking about over hundreds of millions of people who are using a VR headset at least once a week. And that alone is a good enough reason why the church should continue to be pressing into these VR spaces and not abandon it just because other people think that it's time. Again, I think a second wave is coming. And so, all that being said, that's what we're really going to be focusing in on in this new season of the Metaverse Church podcast, is we're going to be talking about all the different ways that churches are using, how individuals are using VR technology in order to really evangelize and reach the lost. And so we'll be hearing from other practitioners and doing it on the different platforms, which I think is really the beauty of a platform like Altspace shutting down, is it forced all of us to learn to be creative and do things different than maybe the person that was doing ministry with us in Altspace. And so we are learning new creative ways in order to do ministry in the VR spaces, and it's awesome. So we're going to be talking to those people. But I do want to also allude to a blog that I just recently dropped. I'll also put it in the show notes. But in this blog that I wrote talking about why the church shouldn't be abandoning VR technology, I gave 5 reasons as to why the church needs to continue pressing into these spaces. And again, the sheer number of users is definitely one of those. But right now I'm speaking to you, maybe the church senior pastor or executive pastor or some person who maybe you're just a volunteer within the church and you want to explore the idea of bringing VR ministry into your expression of the church. And you're asking, why should we even do this? Well, in that blog, I gave 5 reasons why, and these are the 5 reasons. The accessibility. There are so many people in our world today that they have a hard time making it to the physical brick and mortar church. And yes, digital ministry as a whole, live streaming your services, is still a legitimate way that we see churches running today. In fact, there are some digital-only churches that I know that are doing a fantastic job of reaching people. But VR has a way of taking something where it's just a screen between 2 individuals, and it puts them into an immersive experience where it feels like that they're in the same room as the people who are also experiencing the same virtual worship service at the same time. And so for people who aren't able to make it to the physical church building, this takes it one step above just the normal chat feature within the streaming platform. And it gives them the opportunity to get back into a church with people who are like-minded and on the same spiritual journey with them. The second reason why is just the innovative outreach opportunity. I can't tell you how many times I've had the opportunity to just talk to people from all over the world. and even some people just down the street from our physical church building, who they've told us, like, I don't feel comfortable going into the church. I don't feel like my story is welcome there. I don't feel like I'm welcome there. But yet they use VR technology and they hear the innovativeness of a church using VR technology. And all of a sudden they're saying, I might not go into your physical church that's just down the road from me, but I'll step foot into your VR church just because it's a place that they feel safer and more comfortable being at. And it's an environment and a platform that they're already familiar with. So it's really more of the church entering into their space instead of them entering into ours. So that was the second reason. The enhanced worship experience. Man, don't we know this to be true? Some of the people that we'll be talking to this season are world builders. And so they are creating ways for their church service where they're making the Bible just come alive. Whether that's building the stories of Jonah and no longer just reading about Jonah or hearing the story of Jonah, but you get to be Jonah. Just so many different ways in order to enhance the worship experience. Training and education, this is one that I'm actually super passionate about right now when it comes to VR technology. What I've been seeing over the past 2.5 years is really just the ability for people to learn what it means to be a follower of Jesus and what does it mean and what does it look like in order to have a conversation with somebody about your faith. Now, we know that the practice of sharing our faith isn't something that is really taught much within the church these days. In fact, I just came across a stat not too long ago where it's like almost like 75% of churches, that might be a little high, but a good high percentage of churches, their only way of teaching people how to share their story, to share their faith journey, or to evangelize is within the sermons that are taught on Sunday. So the idea of teaching people on how to practice sharing their faith and evangelizing their friends, their neighbors, their family members, their coworkers is just not something that is practiced, especially within the American church today. But within VR spaces, the church is entering into an area where 90 to 98% of the people in there know nothing about Jesus or they want nothing to do with Jesus. So it's a very hostile environment for those who carry the name of Jesus into it. However, it's in the places that it's darkest is where the church is supposed to be stepping into. And so people there are asking really hard questions and they're pushing really hard up against the good news of Jesus. And they're pushing really hard up against the churches that are hopping in there. And so because of that, it actually, what we have been seeing is people are learning to step out of their shell and they're learning to respond to those hard questions and get into conversations with those who are a little hostile to the gospel. And they're starting to grow in their spiritual journey with an evangelistic bend as well. And we're seeing that impact their local context where they're now more comfortable to have those conversations with their friends, neighbors, coworkers, family members, what have you. Because if they're able to have a conversation like that with somebody that they don't know in a hostile environment, somebody that they've already built a relationship with, it makes it a lot easier for them to have those conversations. So just training and education as well. We also know that people learn 4 times faster in VR environments than they do in like a typical classroom type environment. So that alone is just a great way for your church to be using VR technology here in 2024 and moving forward. And then the last one is just, it shows the adaptability and the church willing to change with the times. At some point in time, what Apple's going to do and what everybody else is going to do is they're going to turn these VR headsets and these metaverse headsets, they're going to turn them into just augmented reality, something that is the size of just our regular eyeglasses that we wear on a normal everyday basis. And so because we know that this technology is coming, the church always has to be the one that's willing to change with the times and figure out how to use it, as we were talking about earlier. So I just want to encourage you, while we continue to press into metaverse ministry, I would love to invite you, if you've yet to check it out for your own church, start looking into it within this next year. And you might be saying, well, sir, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean for us to be diving into this? Like, do I have to start, like, do I have to find a whole new staff member? Do I need to dedicate even more of my time to this idea of VR ministry? And I would simply say this, to be honest with you, in the day and age that we're living in, you probably already have somebody at your church that knows how to use this technology and is passionate about it. So what you're really looking for in launching a VR ministry within 2024 is this. You're just looking for somebody who loves to make Jesus known, that they know Jesus and they love to make Jesus known. And it doesn't matter whether that's in a physical space or a metaverse space. It doesn't matter if it's in their local context or if it is somewhere around the world. You just point this individual to a place that needs to know about Jesus, and they're more than happy to step into it and speak life and speak Jesus into that environment. That's the type of person that you're looking for this year. Or for this ministry. So all that being said, I just really wanted to use this as a lob up for what is coming this upcoming year for the Metaverse Church podcast, because that's what we're going to be doing during this year, is having conversations with people who are living out those 5 principles every single week with their churches in so many different creative ways. Now, another change that's coming to the MCP is this. You guys have gotten used to the idea of us dropping episodes once a week. We're going to scale back a little bit on that, and we're going to do once a month episodes, probably the last Monday of every month. And then every so often, we will sprinkle some bonus episodes in there for you as well. So the best thing for you to do to make sure that you don't miss out on any of those monthly episodes is simply subscribe to the podcast. Whether that's on the YouTube channel or any platform that you are listening to podcasts, just be sure that you're subscribed to this podcast. That way, every time we drop one, you get that little notification that a new episode is here. So, and then the other thing that is a blessing to us and it helps us a lot is just simply sharing and leaving a rating and review. All those kinds of things help get this out to more people, and it helps really kind of work that algorithm to get it into the hands of people who need to hear and subscribe to this podcast. So great interviews coming up within this next season. Great conversations between Goose and myself coming up within this season. I'm excited for season 2. I hope you're excited for season 2. So buckle up. Here we go. I'll see you next time for another episode of the Metaverse Church podcast. Until then, be blessed.